Ashe, Ma'at Hotep. This is The Truth May Hurt. My name is Raymond Witcher, and I am your host. I would like to say grand rising to everyone, especially those awakening for the morning. And welcome back to everyone to The Truth May Hurt. I like to go over things, and I like to give you the objective evidence of why I left Christianity, why I'm not going back, and why we don't need to be in a believing game. When we get caught up in a believing game, it doesn't put our mindset in a area of I need to know. So I need to do some research. I need to get some answers. When you are in the believing business or the believing religion, you don't need answers. You don't need anything because we've been told all of our lives, all we need to do is believe. Where did we get this from in the gospel or the New Testament that gives us this false comfort? And I'm saying it is a false comfort because we don't need to believe, we need to know. But where did we get this embedded into our Christian belief? We got it from a guy named Paul, the great apostle Paul. Everybody loves the apostle Paul more than any other apostle, more than any other author in the Bible. The majority of things that we do and we base our beliefs on came from Paul. So we're going to take a look at Paul. We're going to take a look at Paul, and we're going to see that Paul doesn't even agree with himself. So why should I believe and agree with Paul? We're going to take a look at that. We have to keep in mind, we're going to look at the Apostle Paul, then we're going to look at Matthew, Luke. We're going to look at the Apostle Paul, and we're going to look at Acts chapter 9, chapter 22, and chapter 26. This is where Paul had his vision on his way to Damascus, okay? And I have made many references to Paul on his journey to Damascus. He had a vision and he saw a bright light. We're going to look at this in depth. We're going to look at this comprehensively, okay? But I've always made reference that Paul had a vision. Okay, so we have to keep things in the perspective and the context and the definition as it is written, okay? And the definition of vision, the one that applies, is the second definition where it says the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. Okay, so Paul had a vision. He had his imagination, okay, to see and plan the future. So he used his imagination and he used his wisdom. First of all, Paul didn't exist, so let me get this on the table. But this mythical Paul in the biblical story that is recorded in the Bible, it is written in the context that he had a vision, which means he used his ability to think about or plan the future with his imagination and or his wisdom. Okay, great. Paul, I have visions. I know that my visions for me, and I know that my visions for black people is a lot better than Paul's was, or a lot better than what Paul's is in the Bible. Number one. Okay. Number two, these authors didn't start writing these gospels or having these gospels written until 45 or 50 years after Jesus' death. Number one. Number two, Most of these apostles, including Paul, were illiterate. They couldn't read or write. Most of the people during this time were illiterate. Most of the biblical texts were written by scribes. Okay, so if you do a search on were the apostles illiterate, and it comes down and says, many scholars believe that most apostles were likely uneducated fishermen or laborers. The New Testament suggests that some apostles, like Peter and John, were perceived as unschooled. These were illiterate people. Okay, number two, most of these manuscripts were recorded by scribes. Okay, not written. And if you look up who are the authors, or who could the authors of the Bible be, I might try to show you. I don't want to go into that. I'm gonna try to show you. Okay, so then in Acts chapter 4, verse 13, it suggests or says that they were unschooled. They said that they were communicated, but it was verbally. Okay, the ability to read and write varied among individuals in the first century of Judea. Some apostles may have had basic literacy skills, especially in Greek or Aramaic. Okay, the use of scribes and educated followers could have aided in documenting their teachings. They didn't write it. There's a lot of things going on here. Okay, I'm just introducing you to some things that I'm going to be showing you to this presentation. Okay. Okay, now, the Gospels of Matthew, Luke, John, and Mark are all supposed to have been independently written, okay? Independent authors in all of these books. It is very suspicious that they all had independently written or were independently written by authors, and they all start off the same way. According to Mark, according to Luke, according to Matthew, according to John. They weren't independently written, okay? And Mark, Luke, John, and Matthew, they never existed, just like Paul did. This is a book that they put together in a way to control our minds. And once you control anyone's minds, you definitely have control of their what? Their behavior. And what they wanted was obedience. What this whole religion, it doesn't matter which one, they're set up on obedience. They want to give you something to make you compliant and obedient, in order. Okay, and it's well set up. Look, they have to really, well, it's falling apart, but it is the most mind-controlling document or book you will ever read. It doesn't matter whether it's the Torah, it doesn't matter whether it's the New Testament, it doesn't matter whether it's the Quran, it doesn't matter which one of these religious books is set up to control you. Control your mind, you control your people's minds, and you can control their behavior. Okay? And when it comes down to these books, the way that it's written, it doesn't have a recipe for one behavior. It would be great if the only behavior that came out of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism was a good behavior, a forgiving behavior, a non-hate behavior. But the Bible literally teaches people to hate. How to hate, who to hate, who should be your slave. Man, these are behaviors. These are dominant behavior. These are dominant beliefs that they put into people's head that controls their minds, that produces a certain behavior. period. Okay, so these are the things that I want to show you. I want to show you some things. Okay, whatever that. Okay, so let's start taking a look at a few things. Okay, the Apostle Paul, I hate to tell everybody that loves him so much and, you know, can quote his verses and everything so well. Paul is a liar. Actually, he never existed. So we want to go to Acts chapter 9, and we're going to look at verses 3 through 9. We're going to use reference to the New International Bible. Now, this is when Paul was on his way to Damascus. Okay, so this is when he was on his way to Damascus, okay? But here's something a lot of people don't know. Why was Paul on his way to Damascus? Okay, well, it was actually Saul, because he was still Saul then. Okay, all right. Saul was on a mission to persecute Christians. See, maybe you didn't know, but Paul was a bounty hunter for the Catholic Church. He got paid to hunt down Christians because he was a non-believer, and they were killing Christians. Okay, so Paul made a living killing, persecuting, and hunting down Christians. Okay, he sought to arrest followers of Jesus in the city. His goal was to eliminate the growing influence on Christianity. Saul had received authorization from the high priest to carry out this task. The journey was sufficient for his eventual conversion experience on the road. The event marked a pivotal movement in the spread of Christianity. Okay, so that's why Paul was on the road to Damascus. All right, and as he neared Damascus, this is Acts chapter 9, verse 3 through 9. As he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell on the ground and heard a voice say to him, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" "Who are you, Lord?" Saul asked. "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting," he replied. "Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do." Keep in mind, this is a what? It's a vision. It's his imagination. This bright light was his imagination. It wasn't something that he saw. Well, Paul never existed, so he couldn't have seen it anyway. All right, the men traveling with Saul stood there speechless. They heard the sound, but did not see anyone. Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So they led him by the hand into Damascus. For 3 days he was blind and did not eat or drink. Only Saul saw the light, heard a voice. The others heard a sound, but saw no one, and only Saul fell to the ground, right? Saul fell to the ground, heard a voice. They heard the sound, but didn't see anyone, right? Okay, now keep in mind, the only author in the book of Acts is who? Paul. So Paul should not have a problem recalling and agreeing with himself, right? Okay. Okay, so actually, we're going to do not 3 through 9, we're going to do 3 through 12. Okay, in Damascus there was a disciple named Ananias. The Lord called to him in a vision. So Ananias is having a vision. "Ananias." "Yes, Lord," he answered. The Lord told him, "Go to the house of Judas on Straight Street. Let me see what on Straight Street and asked for a man from Tarsus named Saul, for he is praying. In a vision, he has seen a man named Ananias come and place his hands on him to restore his sight. Okay. All right. So here, again, the only one heard the sound was Paul. So everything stays the same here. Now, we're going to go down to Acts 22, and we're going to look at verses 6 through 15. We're still referencing the New International Version. About noon, as I came near Damascus, suddenly a bright light came from heaven, flashed around me. I fell on the ground and heard a voice say to me, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? And then remember, Saul was going to Damascus to persecute Christians. Okay. Who are you, Lord? I asked. I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting, he replied. My companions saw the light, but they did not understand the voice of him who was speaking to me. What shall I do, Lord? I asked. Get up, the Lord said. Go into Damascus, and you will be told all that you have been assigned to do. My companions led me by the hand into Damascus, because the brilliance of the light had blinded me. And a man named Ananias came to see. He was a devout observer of the law and highly respected by all the Jews living there. He stood beside me and said, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And at that very moment, I was able to see. And he said, the God of our ancestors has chosen you to know his will and to see righteous one and to hear words from his mouth. You will be his witness to all people of what you have seen and heard. All right. Now, Saul didn't say all of this back in Acts 9. Okay, not only did he not only say all of this, here the ones with Saul saw the light and heard the voice, but did not understand the speaking to Saul. Okay? Let's go down to let's go to Acts 26, and we're going to look at verses 12 through 17 in the New International Version. Okay. On one of these journeys, I was going into Damascus with the authority and commission of the chief priests. Remember, he's on this mission to persecute Christians, and he has the authority from the commission of the chief priests. About noon, King Agrippa, as I was on the road, I saw a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, blazing around me, and my companions, we fell on the ground, and I heard a voice saying to me in Aramaic, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Okay, he's saying the same thing, okay? So it's basically saying the same thing. It's just worded different because down here it doesn't say that he had a vision. Okay. I have appeared to you to appoint you as a servant and as a witness of what you have seen and will see of me. I will rescue you from your own people and from the Gentiles. I am sending you to them. Okay. Even though this doesn't say vision, I've shown you in verses like I think it's Acts 17, chapter 22, when Paul is talking, and Paul is one of the reasons we're messed up. One of the other reasons is Abraham, because Abraham didn't exist either. But I did videos on Abraham. I want to focus just on Paul and these apostles. So in Acts, I think it's 17, verse 22, when Paul is talking to the men of Athens, in the King James Bible, it says, well, in the New International Bible, it says, you men of Athens are very religious. And in the King James, it says, you men of Athens are very superstitious. So religion and superstition mean the same thing. So when you're reading this, just because it doesn't say vision is the most descriptive out of any of these translations. So vision is applicable, or they mean the same thing. Okay. But here, all of them fell on the ground and heard the voice. In the other, in Acts 9 and Acts 22, Paul was the only one that fell on the ground. And Paul was the only one that saw the light. Now here, Paul says he saw a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, blazing around me and my companions. We all fell on the ground, and I heard a voice saying to me, okay, let's back up. Now Paul says he heard a voice saying to him. Okay, now in here, Acts 9, it says the men here were speechless. They heard the sound, but did not see anyone. Okay, so now Paul, he's not agreeing with himself. He's the only author. He's the only one recalling this. Now he can't remember that in Acts 9, he said that he was the only one that fell on the ground. He fell on the ground and heard a voice say to him. Okay. The men traveling with Saul stood speechless. They heard the sound, but did not see anyone, and they did not fall on the ground. Okay, I needed to come and edit this in because I left this out. You see here, Paul had a vision. And here you see Ananias had a vision. Okay. All right. In a vision, he has seen a man named Ananias. Okay, so this is Paul having a vision about Ananias. All right. Now, when you come here, here's why they're saying he had a vision about Ananias. Okay, so in Acts 9, it's saying that Paul had a vision. Okay, now it's calling out the name Ananias. Yes, Lord, he answered. Okay, Damascus, you will find a disciple named Ananias. So why is Ananias being the one chosen? Here's why. Okay, a man named Ananias came to see me. He was a devout observer of the law and highly respected by all Jews living there. So this man Ananias is going to convince the devout Jews Okay, I needed to edit something in right quick because I need to make sure that all of these points are not missed, because that's what this is all about. Showing that Paul doesn't agree with himself. If Paul doesn't agree with himself, why should I agree with Paul? So it's difficult trying to read, navigate, stay on point, doing a presentation by yourself. So when I reviewed the video, I had missed a few things. So I'm going to put them all together right here. One place. This video is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but I don't want to miss anything. So in Acts 9, the light only showed around Paul. Only Paul fell to the ground. The others were standing, but heard a voice, but didn't see anyone. Acts 22, the bright light flashed around Paul only. Only Paul fell to the ground. The men saw the light, but did not hear the voice. In Acts 9, they heard a voice, but didn't see anything. In Acts 22, the men saw a light, but didn't hear a voice. That's a contradiction in Paul. Okay? Then in Acts 9, says men heard a voice and didn't see anyone. Okay? All right? And in 26, the light shined around Paul and the men. They all fell down to the ground. So above, the light only shined around Paul in Acts 9. It only flashed around Paul in 22. And in 23, it shined around Paul and the men, and they all fell to the ground. It's a problem. And okay, that's Acts 9. Let's go to 22. Where's 22? That's 22. Okay. In 22, saw the bright light around him. He fell on the ground by himself, heard a voice say to him, my companions saw the light, but did not understand. Now here they saw the light, but they didn't understand the voice. Here they did not see anyone, so they didn't see a light. And when we go down to 26, about noon, okay, I saw a bright light from heaven, brighter than the sun, blazing around me and my companions. We all fell on the ground, and I heard a voice saying to me. They didn't hear a voice. They didn't hear a voice. Okay, so I hope I'm presenting this in a way that you can follow it. Author couldn't remember what he said. Paul never existed. Okay? Okay, let's look at Matthew. We're gonna look at the resurrection. Okay? And we're gonna look at what Matthew, John, Luke, and Mark say about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now, I've shown you that Paul doesn't agree with himself. And what these verses are going to show you is that none of the apostles agree with each other. Okay? The so-called apostles that all had independent authors. Well, all of the apostles that were illiterate, couldn't read or write, had scribes. Let me show you this first, okay? Let me show you this first, okay? Because the scribes are the ones that wrote it. These guys, or the author, is the one that was supposed to be telling the scribes what to write. Okay, let's go to Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. We're staying with the New International Version. The reason I'm showing you this is because here it says, how can you say we are wise, for we have the law of the Lord, when actually the lying pen of the scribes has handled it falsely? What's it telling you? It's telling you somebody's lying, and it's telling you that the scribes have not recorded any of this right. And I'm not going to say any of it. They've recorded enough of it wrong that it can say that when actually the lying pens of the scribe has handled it falsely. Okay, now keep in mind, Paul had a vision. Now, Jesus said, I didn't come to change the law. I didn't come to abolish the law. I came to fulfill the laws of Moses. It's Paul who changed the law, not Jesus. Okay, so when it says you scribes have handled it falsely, falsely means lied. Okay, so anyone that has gone against, Paul is going against what Jesus said. Now think about this. This is a riddle book, and I've said this many times. It's a riddle book. Now, Paul, the mythical character Paul, the deceitful character Paul, the lying character Paul, who was a persecutor of Christians, all of a sudden, he has this vision of a bright light that's so bright, it's brighter than the sun, it blinded him. And he heard Jesus tell him that you're going to be the man now. Now, if Hitler was on his way to Berlin and he had his troops, his men, and he went into Berlin and he said, you know, on my way into Berlin, I saw this bright blazing light brighter than the sun. And Yahweh told me to come and tell all of the Jews that he chose me to lead them to righteousness, salvation, and all of the things that Jews love and practice. What do you think the Jews would do? You think they'd be on board? They'd say, yeah, man, you know, I'm glad that, you know, God sent you to us. We need you to help us. Paul and Hitler were doing the same things. Man, do you know how many Christians they were killing? Okay, I'm not going to get into a head count, but I'm giving you a scenario of the same thing, because the only thing Paul said he had was a vision. And I'm showing you right here in Jeremiah, where Jeremiah says, the scribes have lied. Okay, so it's a lot going on. That it's a riddle book. You got to get out of this mindset that I can take the Bible literally because it's historical. All of these things happen, and I can take it word for word. It's infallible. It's God's word. It's perfectly written. And I'm showing you that it's not. I'm showing you that Paul doesn't agree with himself. I'm showing you that in the Bible it says that the scribes have written things falsely. I'm showing you that Jesus Christ said, now I'm not pulling all of these things up, but all you have to do is do a search in any search engine and ask, did Jesus say he came to fulfill the law or abolish the law? It'll come right up. And it'll tell you, Jesus said, I didn't come to abolish the law, I came to fulfill the law. My Father sent me to fulfill the law. Okay? Paul said, I'm going to give you these, and you can go look them up. Matter of fact, I'm going to do it right while it's right here because I already have it pulled up. See, when you read Paul and you are going to follow the Pauline epistles, you're Paulinian. You're not a Christian because you're going against what Jesus said. Because here's what Paul said. Paul said in Romans chapter 2, verse 16, this will take place on the day when God judges people's secrets through Jesus Christ, and my gospel declared. Now, if you look up the definition of gospel, it doesn't even call Paul's name. It calls Mark, Luke, Matthew, and John. So, keeping it to the definition, Paul is not supposed to even have a gospel. But this is a part of his vision. See, it's a little book. You got to keep it in the context, the way it's written, word for word. See, because the way that this Bible is pitched, you're supposed to be able to take it word for word. And when you take it word for word, it falls apart as historical. The only thing left is mythical. Okay? So here Paul says, hey, you're going to be judged through Jesus Christ as his gospel declares. Okay? And if you go to verse 25, Paul says, now to him who is able to establish you in accordance with my gospel, the message I proclaim about Jesus Christ, in keeping with the revelations of mysteries hidden for long ages past. Now, here's Paul again saying, you're going to be judged, establish you in accordance with my gospel and the message I proclaim. Only person that was proclaiming these things was Paul. Mark, Luke, John, Matthew, Peter, none of them were proclaiming this. Matter of fact, Peter said, basically, Paul is crazy. Nobody can understand him or his teachings. Okay. Paul's buddy Peter, he brought caution to Paul, his writings in this. It's a riddle book. Don't start getting in your mind that this is historical, but it is a riddle book. So if you go to 2 Peter chapter 3, look at verses 15 and 16. Now, this is Peter talking about Paul. Bear in mind that our Lord's patience means salvation, just as our dear brother Paul also wrote you with the wisdom that God gave him. He writes the same way in all his letters, speaking in them of these matters. His letters contain some things that are hard to understand, which ignorant and unstable people distort, as they do the other scriptures to their own destruction. Well, let's read 17. Hold on. Okay, maybe I should have went on down to 19 and 20, but 17, it draws a conclusion. It's the evidence, the objective evidence that I'm showing you that's right in the Bible, that Peter is saying, man, look, Paul is off the hook. Therefore, dear friends, since you have been forewarned, be on your guard, so that you may not be carried away by the error of the lawless and fall from your secure position, but grow in grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. To him be the glory both now and forever. See, he's telling everybody that Paul is lawless, that he's changing the laws. You're gonna fall from your secure position if you listen to Paul. Because if you listen to Paul, his writings are confusing people and making people believe he's supposed to have a gospel. That you're gonna be judged on the day of judgment. You're gonna be judged through Jesus Christ according to his gospel. You're not gonna be judged in accordance with nothing Jesus Christ says, according to Paul. You're not going to be judged in accordance with nothing that Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, none of them say. You're going to be judged in accordance to what Paul says, and Peter's telling you right here. Man, don't listen to Paul. He wrote all of these Pauline epistles that he had a vision. He didn't get it from God. Okay, so when it comes to Paul, I just wanted to show you that I'm not cherry picking anything. You just can't explain the whole Bible. And you can't do it. You have to break it down. You can't read and accept what Mark says, John, and then go to John and you don't see that there's a controversy. But when it comes to Paul, you don't even have to compare his writings to anybody else's. He doesn't agree with himself, and he's proven that he doesn't agree with Jesus Christ. All right, so now we're going to go to Matthew 28. Jesus is risen after the Sabbath at dawn on the first day of the week. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. Okay, so both Marys went. There was a violent earthquake, and an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. Now you remember these things, but I have things highlighted so that we can see that they don't agree with each other. It talks about his appearance. His clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they looked shocked and became like dead men. Okay, they were shocked. Okay, and the angel spoke to him, "Do not be afraid, he is risen." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell the other disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them, greeting, he said, they come to him, clasp his feet, and worship him. And he told them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There you will see me." Okay, now that's what is said in Matthew about Jesus is risen. Let's go down to John. All right, and this is the empty tomb. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, okay, it's still dark. He says at dusk or dawn, Mary went. Only one Mary went. Up here, both Marys went. Mary went to the tomb and saw the stone had been removed from the entrance. Where's the earthquake? Now, Matthew says it was an earthquake, and everybody knows that if it was an earthquake, everybody there or everybody in that area would have felt the earthquake. But John didn't feel it. It didn't happen according to John. So she came running to Simon, Peter, and the other disciples, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb." Okay, she didn't know where it was. So Peter and the other disciples started for the tomb. Both were running. Now here you got them running, but the other disciples outran Peter and reached the tomb first. So now, you know, they are flying. They're on a race. Okay, he been over and looked in at the stripes and the linen. So he went in and saw everything that Jesus had been wrapped in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight to the tomb, and they saw the linen. Okay. Finally, the other disciples who had reached the tomb first also went inside, saw and believed. They did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back where they were staying. Okay, so John and Matthew do not agree. things happen here in Matthew that if they had happened, John would have felt it. Okay? 2 Marys, 1 Mary. They had a race, they didn't have a race. They don't even mention the disciples up here. See? Only to go quickly and tell the disciples. Okay, so it does say go tell the disciples that he is risen and go to Galilee. I want to check something. Okay, now if we go to Luke, Jesus is risen on the first day of the week, very early in the morning. The women, it doesn't call names, they took spices. Nobody else took spices, and nobody else recorded Mary or both Marys bringing spices. They prepared and went to the tomb and found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they entered, they did not find the body of Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like light stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed. Okay, and they were asked, "Who do you look for?" Okay, so they had a conversation. The other Marys didn't. They weren't asked by anyone, "Who are you looking for?" Okay, and then they were reminded that Jesus told them to go to Galilee. And the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners and be crucified. On the 3rd day should arrive. Then they remembered his words. Okay. And then they went and told the other apostles. They didn't believe the women because their word seems to be like nonsense. And they went back and they found that he was risen. Okay. Per the teachings. Okay, now, Mark is real interesting for several reasons. The book of Mark is actually the first gospel. It's not the last gospel, it's the first gospel. Other teachings or the other gospels are believed to have been inspired from Mark's gospel. And there's something in Mark's gospel. It's very interesting. I'm going to show you. Okay. But as it's written for Mark's recall of the resurrection, when the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, mother of James, bought spices. Okay, so they bought spices so that they could anoint the body very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise. They were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, okay, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb? But when they looked up, they saw the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. When they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side. Nobody else has reported this. And they were alarmed. Mark is recalling and saying something that people say is historical that nobody else is saying. Matthew said there was an earthquake. Nobody said that. Mark is saying that when they entered the tomb, they saw a man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Don't be alarmed, he said. Nobody else said this but Mark. You're looking for Jesus, the Nazarene, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where his robe lay? See the place where they laid him? Okay, now go forth and tell the disciples and Peter He is going ahead of you into Galilee, okay? There you will see him, just as you were told. Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. Now, the book of Mark was the first gospel. Read here. The book of Mark originally only had 8 verses. You see here, the earliest manuscripts and some other ancient witnesses do not have verses 9 through 20. Verses 9 through 20 were added to the book of Mark 100 years later. Now, according to this, and here's where we have a problem. According to Mark, nobody knew Jesus Christ had risen for what, 50 years, 70 years, 80 years, 100 years? Because there were originally only 8 verses in the book of Mark. Now look at verse 9. A few hundred years later is when I guess these women lost they were still alive, because there was only 2 women that went in to the tomb. Now, I don't know how old Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were, the mother of James, when they went into this tomb, but I would assume they were, well, if she was the mother of James, she had to be older than James. Mary Magdalene, she was around the age of Jesus. So they had to be in their 80s. It's just unbelievable. It's a spectacular story, okay? But for what, 50, 60, 80 years, because verse 8 says, trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. For 80 years, nobody even knew, according to Mark, that Jesus Christ had risen and ascended into heaven. But when you get to verse 9, it says, when Jesus rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene. Where did that come from? Where did that come from? Okay, now it picks up out of whom he had driven 7 demons, and she went and told those who had been with him, the disciples, who were mourning and weeping, when they heard that Jesus was alive and that she had seen him. They did not believe it. Then they go on, afterward Jesus appeared in a different form to 2 of them while they were walking in the country. Okay? So you're just seeing stuff that nobody else is saying here, that Mark is saying 50, 80 years after he wrote verse 8, where he said that the women were so afraid they left and didn't tell anybody. Okay, so now, let me show you something. Hold on. Okay, I wanted to pull this up so you could see it for yourself. If you pull up Mark 16, and you go down, and you read verse 8, trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. Now, right here is where it says that there were only 8 original verses to Mark 16. And 50, 60, 80 years later, man, these are the things that they added, verses 9 through 20. Now, it's crazy, okay? It's crazy because it's things in verses 9 through 20 that you'll kill yourself if you do what Mark says, okay? Because he was a little hot. Jesus was a little hot. He was a little upset. You know? believed that he had risen. Okay. Okay, so 12 says, these returned and reported to the rest, and they did not believe them either. Okay. Then 14 says, later Jesus appeared to the 11 as they were eating. He rebuked them for their lack of faith and refusal to those who had seen him after he had risen. 15, he said to them, go into the world and preach the gospel to all creations. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. Now 17 is where it really gets, see, because he's mad, and he's telling his disciples, these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name, they will drive out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up snakes with their hands. And when, let me show you. And when they drank deadly poisons, it will not hurt them at all. They will place their hands on sick people, and they will get well. They will get well. After the Lord Jesus had spoken to them, he was taken up into heaven and sat on the right hand of God. Then the disciples went out and preached everywhere, and the Lord worked with them and confirmed his word by the signs that accompanied it. So what this is telling you right here is that Jesus was telling his disciples that here are the signs that will accompany those that believe in me, right? You're supposed to be able to do these things. And when you do these things, people are going to believe that I have empowered you, and I've empowered those that believe in me and have faith in me, because see, he was mad because they didn't have faith. You see here, their lack of faith and stubborn refusal to believe those who said they had seen it. So he had scolded them and told them these are the signs that will come to those who believe. It doesn't say a few of those that believe. It says all of those who believe in me, because your lack of faith and stubbornness and refusal to believe, I'm going to tell everybody that if you believe in me, these are the signs that will come to you. In my name, you will drive out demons. You will speak in new tongues. Snakes with their hands, and when you drink deadly, it will not hurt you at all. Okay? Now, why do they have handicap parking places at church? They don't need them. Why are the Christians running to the hospital, to the doctor, when you can just get one of your fellow believers to put their hands on you and heal you? Why do they have sign language in church? Why? Shouldn't be no deaf people in there. Why are blind people in church? Why are people dying? Where did the Pope go before he died, when they were trying to keep him alive? Did he go to church? Did he say, take me into the cathedral and take me to the altar, and you priests and you bishops, come here and put your hands on me and heal me? They had over 2,000 people every day showing up at Vatican City to pray for the Pope and put their hands on him here in the ICU, getting medicine, getting tests run. When it says right here, these are the signs that will come to those who believe. In my name, they will drive out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up snakes with their hands. And when they drink deadly poisons, it will not hurt them at all. They will place their hands on the sick, and they will get well. I didn't write this. I didn't write it. And it says here, after the Lord had spoken to them, he was taken up into heaven, and the disciples went out, preached everywhere, and the Lord worked with them and confirmed his word by the signs that accompanied it. And it says right here, these are the signs that will accompany those that believe. And he says right here that if you go out and do these things in my name, and you go out and baptize people and preach these things, I'm going to be with you. The Lord will be with them and confirm his word by the signs that accompanied it. What is it? His words. His words. That's it. What happened? I don't understand. I don't understand. Okay? I had a friend. Well, I still have a friend. He's a staunch Christian, and I'm not bashing anybody, because I was too. And we'll debate verses and the discernment of verses and these kind of things. And he stood firm on everything. But when I got to this, and I showed him this, because I set him up. Because I asked him, I said, are you willing? I said, you know, most Christians aren't willing to do everything that Jesus says. I said, and you one of them. He said, I do everything Jesus said. Now, if you get a red letter Bible, let me see if I can find one. All of these verses are in red. If you get a red letter Bible, all of these verses are in red. Which means who said it? It means Jesus said it. And it kind of tells you down here in the footnote that Mark 16, verse 8, some manuscripts have the following ending between verses 8 and 9. And one manuscript has it after verse 8, omitting verses 9 through 20. All right? So, this is a problem, because, let me see if I can find hold on one second. It's hard to find a Bible online that has the red letter in it. But here it tells you, to find a printable version of Mark 16, 9 through 20 in red letters, follow these steps. Everything in Mark 16, verses 9 through 20, everything in it is red letters, which means what? Jesus said it. Okay? Okay, so you can find it. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But what I was telling my friend, now, I set him up. Because you have to be able to show how crazy this is, and that you really don't believe everything that's in the Bible. You say you believe everything is the Bible. You say you believe everything in the Bible is historical. You say you believe in the Bible that's in red letters is right out of Jesus' mouth. You say these things, and that, yes, I will do everything until you read something like this. So after I said, listen, bro, so you're willing to do everything that Jesus says? He said, yes. I said, now, everything in the Bible that's in red letters means Jesus said it, right? Yes. So I took him right to Mark chapter 16, verses 7 through 20. And I said, listen, brother. Verse 18 says, they will pick up snakes with their hands, and when they drink deadly poisons, it will not hurt them. I said, so you're willing to drink deadly poisons? You willing to pick up snakes? I said, forget the snakes. Are you willing to drink poison? Because I have Prestone antifreeze. I have, I get any kind of antifreeze you want, because they say antifreeze tastes good. He said, I'm not doing nothing crazy like that. I said, wait a minute. This is in red letter. So you're saying Jesus is crazy? I'm not saying Jesus is crazy. So you can't be saying that you're not doing something crazy like that, and Jesus is telling you to do that so that you can what? The disciples went out and preached everywhere, and the Lord worked with them and confirmed his word by the signs that accompanied it. What is it? His word. What is his word? That when you drink that poison, no harm will come to you at all. Man, okay? So I'm showing you these things, all right? I'm showing you that this is a crazy book. It's a riddle book that is written in a way that it'll keep you lost. Okay, you're like no longer me. But when I was in church, I was like the greyhound dog. The Christians in that church, we were like the greyhound dogs that are released out of the stalls at a racetrack, and they have that fake rabbit running around the track. First of all, it's a fake rabbit. Second of all, you'll never be able to catch it. Okay, so they have us twisted up in these belief things that when you really evaluate it and break it down, it's the craziest things you've ever seen or heard in your life. Written by anonymous authors. Now go back and look at my videos on the Peso family, because they wrote the Bible. They wrote the Old Testament and the New Testament because they wanted to be able to control their slaves. That's why so many instructions in the Bible about slavery. Slaves, obey your masters, be kind to your masters, even those cruel to you. If a master beats his slave close to death, but he gets up 2 days later, the master shall not be punished. But if the slave dies, the master shall be punished. It's a slave indoctrination book. Okay? It has nothing to do with God. Well, it doesn't have anything to do with my God or our God, because our God did not make us to be slaves. Our God did not make us to be believers all of our life and die knowing nothing. Okay, it doesn't work like that.